Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today, Fresh Thinking on Knowledge Management in ServiceNow. A few quick notes before we start. Your phone lines are muted today, so if you have any questions, please use the chat panel. You'll see the tab that says Q&A. Please submit your question to all speakers. Secondly, Jeff is doing a demo, and you may find it helpful to be in full screen mode to see the portal. So you might want to take a moment now to find the full screen mode in the webinar application. And last, I am recording this, so no later than tomorrow you will receive an email from the ReadyTalk address, and that will include both a link to this recording as well as a link to download the slides that the presenters are using today. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen. Don?
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello all, and thanks for joining us. I'm Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen, and with me today is my normal partner in crime and co-host, Jeff Benedict, who heads up Evergreen's ITSM practice and leads our innovation efforts. If you're new to our webinar series, welcome and thanks for joining us. If you're a past attendee, we're glad to see you back again. Our goal is always to share valuable information and insights that you can use in your planning and activities right now. Excuse me. The topic we will explore today is fresh thinking on knowledge management in ServiceNow. This is our agenda. After a little bit about Evergreen, we'll dive into the topic, and beyond that, as Stephanie mentioned, we'll demonstrate some of the concepts discussed in ServiceNow, and after that, you can ask questions if you have any. Evergreen is a U.S.-based consulting firm. We've worked with hundreds of mid-market, Fortune 1000, and public sector organizations to improve service management execution. Over the past 20 years, we've delivered more than 4,000 service management projects. We are a full lifecycle firm, meaning we have both process and technology consulting in the same company, and we are one of a few top-tier or gold U.S. ServiceNow partners in services, applications development, and training. As a certified applications developer, we develop solutions on the platform which must be built and tested to the same standards as ServiceNow does themselves. We believe the benefit to you is higher quality. We have an exciting new announcement. Over the years, we built a number of automated tools to help us deliver more effectively and consistently, and our customers have often asked us for them, because they don't have good quality assurance tools for ServiceNow. So we combine them into a ServiceNow scoped application we call the Evergreen Instance Analyzer, which you can use to run regular quality testing. It has the functionality of the ServiceNow ACE report, if you're familiar with that, and a lot more. The core solution not only discovers deviations from ServiceNow published coding best practices, it also helps you to manage or remediate them, so you don't miss anything important. It has an easy-to-use workspace where you can select, launch, and manage multiple analyses at the same time if you wish to do so. As of right now, we offer two primary analysis use cases, which is the ServiceNow coding best practices and a service portal readiness. That is the migration for those who still need to migrate from CMS. We have another dozen or so use cases identified that we're considering for developing. Here you can see the sub-workspace that's dedicated to the CMS to service portal migration analysis. And we can see here what needs to be remediated by logical groupings and then drill into any individual remediation recommendation to see the specifics and its state of progress. We can also see what needs to be addressed first based on a calculated score of criticality that you can adjust. This can be very useful as the move from CMS to Service Portal tends to be complex and code intensive. The Evergreen Instance Analyzer scoped application plus the two use cases is free to ServiceNow customers. We offer a no-cost analysis where we will install it in a non-production environment, run the analysis, review the findings with you, and provide you an estimated level of effort to address any findings should you wish us to. We do this as a way of introducing Evergreen and our unique approach to quality. As I said, though, the Evergreen Instance Analyzer is free. It is yours to keep, and you can use it to help in your regular quality activities. So let's get into our topic today. What is the state of knowledge management today? Not a bad place to start. Excuse me. Here are some characteristics that define the current state for many people. While we may have a good set of principles for knowledge, there may not be a way of ensuring that they are used consistently. Support staff are so busy, it's often hard to get them to participate. Knowledge can change fast, so it's hard to keep it current. For many, since it's perceived as hard to quantify from a value standpoint, knowledge is seen as a nice-to-have rather than a must-have. Last but not least, perhaps we're a bit old school in thinking the term knowledge article is a document. Maybe we should call it a knowledge artifact. Here are actual results from a knowledge assessment survey completed by the support staff at one of our clients. You can see they feel it's too hard to publish. They don't know the standards or processes. Knowledge searchability is poor, and they don't understand how they fit or what their role is in knowledge. We believe the value of knowledge today is significantly held back by lack of self-service knowledge. That is, the capability for customers to search knowledge themselves and resolve their own issues. According to HDI surveys, around 80% of IT organizations actually offer self-service options to their customers. That's pretty high. But according to this ongoing survey by Happy Signals, with 100,000 responses as of about a year ago, 64% of service desk interactions are via phone or email. This is exactly what we have been doing for more than the past decade or two. One-to-one unique human interaction. It's terrifically inefficient for both the customer and the provider. It's almost hard to believe. Worse yet, even though 80% of us claim to have self-service for our customers, according to the customers themselves, self-service interactions are only 12% and have the lowest overall happiness rating per this survey at 53%. People really do like self-service, as long as it isn't bad. We can't do much fresh thinking on knowledge self-service until we first break this one-to-one human interaction cycle. So if we intend to change this, we should make sure we understand the benefits that knowledge can bring. Now, there are more than this list here, but it's a pretty good starting set. Excuse me. If we can enable self-service knowledge and initial attempts by a customer to solve an issue, we reduce the work of level 1 support and can route an issue much faster because we've gotten some triage out of it. At level 1, better use of knowledge can make a big difference in more accurate and consistent resolution and increasing the topic range a level 1 person can cover. It also helps to train new support people faster and better and gives us a way to better capture the tribal knowledge of more senior support people before it's lost to retirement. Through the inspecting nature of the knowledge process, we can uncover ways to improve customer support and even eliminate the issue at hand. It could be via training, remediation or repair of something in a solution that we have, or actual product enhancement. So how much can you self-serve knowledge? How about 100%? While that sounds crazy, it is essentially what Amazon has done. Amazon is also the highest ranked retailer in customer sat at a score of 86, along with Nordstrom and Costco, which is a pretty good company. Now here's what's astounding to me. More than 2/3 of American households pay over $100 a year to be Amazon Prime members. Odds are you are a Prime member because it is an excellent customer experience. But you can't talk to them because you don't need to. Everything Amazon does is powered by effective self-service knowledge. What about the future of services? Studies have shown that over 90% of customers will use a portal to answer their questions if the information is good. A chatbot, still fairly new, is voice or chat-driven, programmed knowledge in a branching tree manner. AI, the new thing, does think and learn over time from a pattern standpoint, but is still early Ostensibly, though, it will be a lot better than a chatbot if it's being applied in interactive voice and chat use. All of these approaches, though, are enabled by knowledge. So it seems that knowledge will actually become more important rather than less. Let's talk about Knowledge-Centered Service, or KCS. I'll bet a number of you have some awareness of this. KCS is promulgated by a group called the Consortium for Service Innovation, and it's a relatively new approach to knowledge management that is seeing rapid adoption. It runs counter to many previous knowledge management approaches as it espouses a core set of principles controlled by a small group, but with a much wider embrace of the actual knowledge workers to be able to understand and apply the principles more easily in day-to-day operational activities. Core to KCS is the concept of what they call a double loop process, which is the solve loop and the evolve loops. The work tasks are in the solve loop, and the big picture is the evolve loop. We want to focus on completing tasks in the solve loop with an understanding of the potential benefits the collection of tasks provides in the evolve loop. The evolve loop reflects on and learns from a collection of solve loop tasks and associated knowledge articles. It's the organizational level processes which analyze the patterns that emerge from this collection of tasks and knowledge use. It only works if each task is done correctly. The solve loop and evolve loop are interdependent. Each enables the other. And in general, it's a pretty logical way of looking at things. If we look a little bit deeper, the evolve loop is what we would essentially call governance. It represents the responsibilities of leadership and the organizational level process. The evolve loop defines the solve loop processes and standards for content. It's also reflected in that it is a process of continuous improvement based on the analysis, as we just talked about. The evolve loop integrates knowledge worker activities in resolving issues with organizational level processes, including the responsibility to support and continuously improve the overall maturity of the KCS system and improving the solve loop. The four pillars of the evolve loop are content health, process integration, performance assessment, and leadership and communications. Now, just for fun, if we refer back to the actual support survey results we discussed earlier, we can see that 3 of the 6 key points are directly addressed by the functions of the evolve loop. The solve loop is the request-response workflow. Responders capture the resolution experiences to create a collective memory. A little bit of structure in the request-response process helps enormously, while too much structure is disruptive. Use of the knowledge base and a structured workflow increases responders' speed and accuracy in solving the request. Access to the collective experience through the knowledge base also reduces rework, that is, not spending time solving requests that have already been solved. Therefore, KCS practices that contribute to the creation and maintenance of knowledge in the solve loop. They are capture, which is capture in the workflow while responding to requests. We capture the context, the words and phrases, as well as the responder's knowledge. Structure, structure for reuse. Consistent structure, simple templates, crisp style, improves KCS article readability. Reuse, here we're looking at the words and phrases entered to search. We want to preserve those. They're valuable content that can be used and reused to improve existing KCS articles. And then improve if reuse is review. As responders, we take responsibility for the articles we interact with. The knowledge base is our collective experience, all of it. If we see something that's wrong or that we do not understand, we have the responsibility to flag it or fix it. Referring back to those support survey results again, we can see that 3 of the 6 key points are addressed by the functions of the solve loop. Now we're going to look at some additional knowledge management best practices that complement the KCS approach. To drive self-service use and overall growth of knowledge, we need to expose it for self-service in our ServiceNow service portal. Here you can see on the left-hand side that a search for expense management returned these 7 findings, with their degree of relevance. But what if we'd gotten back 300 results? It would be hard to understand that volume, so we can filter it to a more manageable level on the right-hand side by looking at only catalog items, knowledge, or business services. A very big value point in self-service is to offer enough knowledge, easily searchable, to make it worthwhile for the customer to use it in the self-service experience, so that it'll be useful and sufficient. Self-service knowledge is a key weakness in many customer service environments, which is a shame because many of these same support centers have well-developed knowledge, but only for the use of the support desk reps. It hasn't been reformatted and delivered to the customers for self-service. So back to Amazon. Here I'm looking at a Starbucks coffee machine called a Rationalize. I look at questions and answers, or frequently asked questions, and they're a primary and powerful form of knowledge. If I scroll down, I can easily see additional detailed information on the product, and I can even download a product manual. I still find these useful, even though that is deemed as old school now. On the right are 36 frequently asked questions that are answered, which I can easily search. So with all this together, this is useful and sufficient information. That is, enough to make a self-service knowledge activity successful. One of the biggest problems that companies face in knowledge management is that needed information is scattered all over the place. Knowledge here, frequently asked questions there, manuals here, and so on, making it hard to find and use. That information needs a home page where it can all come together. The goal of a good home page, and this can be done in business services in ServiceNow, is to provide enough information for the customer to make a self-service decision and take action regardless of what they're trying to do. We strongly recommend you create home pages in ServiceNow for your specific products and services offerings. It will greatly clarify and simplify what you're doing. And best of all, it becomes the one place where the customers and the providers of the service can come together and have a direct dialogue. Knowledge improves faster and remains more current if it has a home. While this may not be the case for you, we find for many that knowledge is still viewed as written information, text, or articles. There are many more powerful ways to share and consume information today. It's time to embrace modern learning in our knowledge thinking. Thinking first about the outcome we want instead of the means of providing it can help us kind of unchain our traditional thinking. Last, regardless of the form or the source of the knowledge, we want to enable it through a unified search capability. Here's an Adobe Photoshop example on Amazon. The product has a home page and traditional knowledge support, but at the bottom there are 6 video shorts showing how to perform specific tasks in Photoshop. Beyond that, we see the traditional frequently asked questions kind of knowledge in support of Photoshop, but we also have a search bar. When I typed in, how do I import photos, I not only find the traditional sort of search results, but I see a link in that orange circle open to ask the broader community, thereby automatically tying search to community. I think that's pretty cool. Beyond that, we might want to think a bit more openly. We don't have to offer all the knowledge. The vendor multimedia learning support out there is phenomenal. As an example, in the top left, Adobe brings a wealth of interactive tools and training, in this case for Creative Cloud. Microsoft, tools that probably account for 50% of the average worker's daily activities, offers a huge amount of multimedia support for their software. And Photoshop specifically, in the lower left, has a training channel to better teach you how to use the products. We can save a lot of time and trouble by finding and leveraging vendor sources for knowledge. I have an old 2001 Suburban. I'm pretty handy and frugal, which is a bad combination. A few months ago, I had to replace the fog lamps on this truck. I ordered the parts on Amazon, searched on YouTube, and found and watched a 10-minute video and replaced the lights. Without the video, I would not have been able to figure it out. With it, it was relatively easy. I bet you have a story like this too. But do your customers? We provide hundreds of different technologies to our customers and our organizations. It is estimated that less than 10% of software features are used on average. Does it matter how well people use their tools? We may make them easy to get or react to requests for help, but does that really meet our responsibility to the business? This is how people solve problems and learn how to do things, new things especially. While we can't guarantee it's 100% accurate, can we do that for the knowledge we create and offer? I know we can. Community-based scoring, or social scoring, actually gives us pretty sharp insight as to what is seen as valuable and what isn't by the customers using it. And as long as it's active, has the requisite amount of volume, we can even know if the information is stale or not. Next, consider leveraging collaborative workspace. We saw the example of how it can actually be tied to a frequently asked question, but we want to look at that internally to create very active communities of interest inside your company with the ability to share and search processes, documents, best practices, and lessons learned. Now here's an example using a popular collaborative product called Slack, which we put in place at Evergreen, probably 2.5 years ago. The impact is almost not believable. It's dramatically improved knowledge sharing and the ability for our sales, project managers, consultants, and executives to easily support each other, with a key side benefit: email traffic has gone down by over 50%. While you may not have Slack, I'll bet you have access to Microsoft Teams and SharePoint collaborative workspaces. Along with internal collaborative communities, don't forget the relevant external ones. Here are 2 Microsoft examples for SharePoint specifically and for Microsoft Office. In total, external content and community can provide a powerful base of accurate knowledge regularly curated for you. You don't have to create it or maintain it, so leveraging it can take your knowledge efforts to a much higher level very quickly. This is called a RACI. I know you've probably seen it. And RACIs are a consultant's tool to help clarify what a group of people do in relation to some sort of end-to-end process. They are not hard to use, and they're a great way to communicate with and allow you to visually see that all of your process steps are covered as required end to end. We highly recommend you use a RACI tool to help manage your roles and responsibilities, and for allow the people that are involved to also understand what their roles and responsibilities are. At Evergreen, we used to run a quarterly blogging contest where the winner got something like a TV or an iPad. It was always the same 2 people that participated, taking turns winning, and no one else. I finally realized that they liked doing it, and the rest hated writing, and probably wouldn't have participated if I offered a car. Eventually, I stopped giving away TVs, but those 2 kept blogging. Not everyone is going to want to participate in creating knowledge, so identify the natural teachers and allow them the time for knowledge creation activities. This is such a powerful idea. Further, some people hate to write, but they're awesome at and love doing 2-minute videos. Let them work in their own medium, what they love. Last but not least, make it super easy for anyone to flag something that might make a good knowledge article right in the course of their daily work, and you will get a lot more good ideas. As discussed, the Evolve Loop essentially knowledge program governance, driving quality, consistent approach, metrics, and the overall direction and guidance. The Solve Loop is the action or build loop under governance of Evolve. That is essentially the knowledge lifecycle, cradle to grave sort of process. So we've got governance, and we've got the cradle-to-grave process here. So if we take those things forward, we can create a knowledge factory embodying the KCS double loop thinking. If we're going to build a consistent knowledge design and lifecycle process, we must get into use across IT. Otherwise, what's the point? That means we want people from all across IT to imagine and build knowledge in support of the products they offer. And who better to do so, since these are the people who understand the knowledge that the customers need. In order to do this, we must give them the entree into the knowledge creation process and enable their learning and use of it. This can be accomplished through effective, lightweight governance. We provide the tools and the guidance on how to author or update knowledge step by step when drafting it. Then once drafted or updated, it's submitted for knowledge review. The Knowledge Governance Committee provides feedback on what still needs to be done to be compliant with the standards. Once corrected, the knowledge is given our seal of approval and promoted to production. This gives those with the This gives those with the ideas the freedom to create knowledge while also ensuring we have consistent outcomes meeting our standards. Why is this so important? Because poor, inconsistent knowledge reflects poorly on us, since we are the owners of the knowledge in the eyes of the customers. This lifecycle is essentially what is codified in the KCS loop called Solve. And in detailed design, we reflect the key measures in each of the 4 Solve domains. KCS Evolve essentially is the governance mantle that defines our lifecycle process, quality assurance goals, and metrics to determine how we are doing, as well as overall program goals, purpose, and communication. Like Solve, in addition to codifying the overall governance principles, the lifecycle approach to knowledge enables us to insert context-appropriate communication, coaching, and leadership in each phase of the lifecycle, where it is then specifically appropriate for those who are trying to draft and develop the articles. Really cool how the two things can fit together, and governance is there at the moment of creation. Much of the concepts we talked about today are actually espoused in our employee self-service catalog and portal solution, which is built on the ServiceNow portal platform. It's kind of like Service Portal Plus, basically. It was designed to be a complete end-to-end self-service portal solution out of the box, which you don't have to build, you use. And it's available relatively inexpensively as a scoped application on the ServiceNow store. So that's all we have today for our presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he demos today in support of some of this discussion.
Well, thank you, Don. Well, hopefully I can surprise you on a few things, so we'll see how I do. So for my demo portion today, I'm going to start with some of the points that Don had about knowledge, but from the perspective of where knowledge can serve our customers' needs through the end-user experience. Ultimately, with the goal of driving self-service. So I'm going to start there, and then I will get into kind of authoring new knowledge content and some of the extra tools that we can leverage to aid in kind of governing the quality of that content that we create. So as Don mentioned, this is a portal. Right? This is built on the Service Portal application of ServiceNow, and this is where our customers, our consumers go to get information about our services, submit requests, track the status of those requests, but also obviously try to answer questions and solve problems. So one of the first places where we can kind of start to promote and push answers or content to our consumers is in something like a quick links, or in this case, this I want to list, which is some pinned shortcuts for me as a consumer. And so a couple things I'll see here, right? So if I'm looking to, maybe there's an initiative underway in an organization to set up two-step authentication mechanisms. We can push a knowledge article to the forefront of our portal where I can quickly come and find kind of how to do that setup. Right? I can also review this, kind of go through this textual-based knowledge article step by step, provide some ratings, feedback, or even open up an incident if I'm having trouble working through this particular knowledge article. Don also mentioned videos, right? So this is also an area where maybe this isn't the best way to consume this setup or this information. Maybe it's better to consume this through a recorded video and watch kind of how to set up, say, two-step authentication, or in this case, set up how to use Camtasia Studio to make my own training videos that I could then embed within our knowledge base. So obviously there's that. Then there's the other option too, so I can start from the home page here and I can start to search for something. So, if I'm starting to search for how do I do something, then it's starting to fill in the blanks for me with here's some of the kind of likely filled in searches that other people have performed related to a how-to I. So maybe I'm looking for how do I log into our Office 365 environment. Right, this is going to take me to a list of knowledge articles. Now, a couple things that happened here is because of my language in terms of what I used in terms of phrasing this as how do I accomplish something. It did leverage some natural language, kind of parsing of this and targeted my search to the knowledge base and obviously then scored the results based off the most relevant matches. Now, as Don highlighted, if I can't find something from the initial results, I do have some options to kind of filter. If I want to widen the search to all multiple types, I can do that and keep it into knowledge. I can also maybe drill directly into specific categories, ultimately find maybe an article I'm looking for to help answer some particular questions, and again provide some feedback or some short feedback of whether this is useful or not useful as a way to kind of complete that transaction of how we got to either a solution or not finding a solution. The other concept I want to hit on here, just kind of related to search, is sometimes your knowledge content, or likely your knowledge content, may not be centrally located inside of ServiceNow, right? It may be distributed amongst multiple places. So one of the strategies is you could federate kind of your knowledge search against multiple sources. So an example of that, if I search for something like best practice guides, one of the things you'll see here is this is running searches across our knowledge or ServiceNow repositories, but also you'll see SharePoint kind of listed in here, right? So I have it's reaching outward of ServiceNow, connecting to our SharePoint environment, running searches against SharePoint, and showing me various results there as well. Now in this case, when I go to pull up these articles, instead of basically rendering a ServiceNow knowledge article or content, it's taking me to SharePoint, getting me the content of the document or forum post, records is natively housed within that particular tool, but the search itself has been kind of federated into kind of one result set for me to see both my ServiceNow answers and in this case SharePoint answers as well. Another, just kind of along the same lines, external content option, and I'll show you this from, first of all, from the native UI perspective, is one of the tools that ServiceNow, or one of the plugins that ServiceNow has, is this for knowledge base. You can kind of connect to external knowledge sources and basically pull in external knowledge from these sources into a ServiceNow knowledge base document. I'll try to show you in a second here what this kind of looks like. So I did this for, we leverage Box in addition to SharePoint and Slack for storing our various documents that we manage. So we can connect into, say, our Box environment. This is basically establishing the connection information. As I would drill in, I'll just show you as I drill in ultimately where I would put kind of login and password information. So I have connections. Ultimately, I have a connection type and credentials that get us set up for connecting to our environment. Right, so these are the different credentials that I set up. So, but then what you do is you end up defining as part of here kind of how do you want to run a scheduled job to go get this nightly? Do you want to run it manually? And then it will, in essence, go connect out to this external source, bring in these contents, and store them as an external knowledge article, which in essence captures some information about the file that it downloaded and the attachment of that file. So that's basically getting that content externally. Now the way it kind of shows up to a consumer is if I were to come out here and search for CSM portal, I know that matches one of my articles. These two on the top are basically documents that we have out in our Box environment, right? So when I go to look at it, there's not much knowledge content displayed to me, but it does allow me to see and download the document as we have housed out on Box. So the way to kind of share that amongst my ServiceNow searches, and because ServiceNow search engine does search attachments and the content it attaches, you will see that it does have a fairly high weighted score of relevance because it is actually matching on the content of the documents that are pushed in from the external source as well. All right, so that's search. Let me kind of show you from a get help perspective where knowledge is going to kind of find its way into a customer's kind of answers as they're drilling through. So the way to get help is structured is it's kind of prompting me to kind of identify what type of issue I'm having. So if I have an issue related to email and access, as I get deeper in, it starts to do a few things for me. It shows me some knowledge articles that are topically relevant. So if I were to maybe find something here, this might be something to help deflect my incident creation. I've also got options to chat, schedule appointment, get that one-on-one kind of lifeline support. And then further, as I put more details into my particular issue that I'm having, it's going to leverage that information plus the topic that I'm kind of centered into to try to show and provide me the best answer or the best solution to my likely problem with the goal of deflecting kind of incident creation. And again, this is another area where I can see that content, provide some immediate feedback whether this was helpful in solving my problem or not, and kind of moving on with my day. The last portal area I wanted to kind of get into was, and Don mentioned this, kind of giving knowledge kind of a place on a service homepage. And so I'll show you what that looks like. So when I do a search for, and this is an example I think he even had in his slides. So when I do a search for kind of what is Concur, if I filter that down to just our business service pages, I'll find that this is a match on our expense management business service. So I want to go see what is that service and what are the different options and actions I can perform. I can come to what we call our service homepage. And this is where I can both learn about the service but also interact with it. So I can learn kind of how, what are the different offerings, kind of what are the commitments being made. Is it currently in a down situation? Has it had an issue over the last couple of days? What's the history of its health? Some of the forms I can act on and submit. These would be catalog items I can request. Kind of what are people that use this service saying about this? Are there issues? How are they rating it? Are there some feedback and notes that are related here? And then most notably, there's some actions over here to provide feedback to make this service better, get help, but also this is where we can see some of those frequently asked questions that are service topically relevant. And so this, if I were, say, a new consumer to this Concur or expense management service, this might be a good place for me to start to get information about the service, but also maybe answer some or address some of the common questions I'm likely going to have in working with this particular service. Last one I'll hit on just as another flavor of this kind of homepage is with another kind of portal look and feel and a different kind of layout of this service page. This one's more of a product focus, but the same concepts are here in that I can learn about what is this product. Also, I can then jump in and say if I'm getting started to use this, here's some knowledge articles that are video-based that are in essence presented on the Getting Started page along with the kind of some tutorial guides that are, again, knowledge articles, and then also some common frequently asked questions, some other policy documentation that kind of help me navigate and utilize, in this case, a particular product or service that is being provided to me. So that's the consumer side I wanted to cover. So let me now shift gears, and I will cover kind of authoring a new knowledge article and some of the kind of extra tools we'll kind of show as part of this. So I'm going to go to knowledge. And so one of the things that we've added in this environment, we call this kind of a designer, or we've used this for business services. We've also used it for knowledge articles. But you'll see create new, but also create new with designer. So I'll show you kind of what our designer kind of tool looks like. And so the goal here is really to guide or walk the user through authoring this knowledge article and making sure it's matching our governed standards of how the article should be constructed, built, and ultimately reviewed and checked against those standards. So the first thing to highlight here is that we've got a number of templates that we can start to build this from. I'm going to create a new how-to article. I'm going to use this document as my little guide just to make sure I fill in the same information I want to. So I'm going to create a new article for how do I reset my iPhone. This is an IT relevant knowledge article, so I'm going to stick it in our IT knowledge base as a starting point. And then this is in essence starting the shell of my knowledge article. Now the way this is kind of structured is you'll see at the top here's my article information, prompt about how far or how much I've completed as far as the requirements of the document, kind of what's the expectation of filling out what would be considered a complete fully vetted knowledge article. I'm 50% there already just by giving it a knowledge base and a title. But some of the other things I'm missing, I do need introduction, I do need instruction, I do need to categorize this. Right, and so I have some options here too as an author or designer of this. If I want others to collaborate or add into my mix, I can add them as a collaborator, and they can in essence share the same rights as I have in designing and building this article. This overview section or tab is really just some general instructions for me as to how to navigate and work through this particular tool. I'm going to jump through kind of the sections here. So the first area is to fill in my article content, which in this case, because it's a how-to article, it's got these expectations of having an introduction and some instructions of this. If it were a frequently asked question, it would have more of a what is the question, what is the answer to complete this kind of article. All right. So I'm just going to go fill in. I've already got my content, so you don't have to see me type everything. I'll just kind of fill this in. That's my instruction or introduction. I've also got a section here related to instructions, which I will paste in here as well, which includes some links to some lovely screenshots to kind of make it visually appealing and easier for my consumer to use. And the other thing I should highlight is as I click into these sections here, so if you see I click on this, one of the things that's happening on the right side here is it's giving me guidance as to, for this section, for the article content, here's what you need to do. For this particular attribute I'm clicked on, here's some of the guidance you want to have. So 5 words or less, shouldn't include jargon, shouldn't be acronym based. You know, some of the kind of best practice guides around how these articles should actually be constructed. You'll see the same thing if I click into the instructions or introduction, kind of how this should be presented and framed. Valid to, now this is a relevant attribute if you know there's an end of life to support of an iPhone, for example, then we can put this article as being valid to a certain date. In essence, once that date is met, the article no longer becomes valid from a consumer or consumption perspective. I'm going to leave it with the default. We'll kind of move forward. So I've already classified my knowledge base. Kind of my next area of classification is where do I want to organize this within that knowledge base from a category perspective. All right, so I can kind of drill into, say I want to put this in the IT frequently asked questions. I can kind of start there. But I also have a nice little button here that says Get Suggested Category. And what this is going to do is it's going to basically look at my article text, kind of run similarly to what I was showing in the search area, kind of use a connection to a natural language processing kind of engine and tool, and based off of the weights and the terms, basically kind of pick out what's the best category for me to leverage or organize this article into. In this case, it basically organizes, you don't see the top level, but it organizes under devices and Apple as far as our category structure as being the best suggested match. And I'll just kind of leave that and save that as our category we want to use. So notice now I've got everything kind of filled out that is required, but I could still go through these other tabs and maybe put in some additional information that's helpful. So maybe I have some attachments that I want to display to our customers that, maybe in this case is a user guide that I want to include. I just kind of drop that in here and save that to the attachments area of our knowledge article. Further, we talked about kind of the showing the articles of the knowledge kind of in relation to kind of a service on a service homepage. Well, this is kind of where I would go to do that linkage. So I can come in here and say I want to add a linkage between this knowledge article and this business service. And in my case, this is probably most relevant to our mobile device support business service that we have in our services catalog. I'll go ahead and link that and then continue. And basically the last page here is just a kind of final checklist of do I have everything that is expected to me have for this particular article to be completed and filled in. And at this point, I am ready for submission to route this for someone to review and kind of validate and check my work. So now this particular author's work is kind of done at the moment. And so where it goes is you'll see there's a module over here under knowledge for articles to review. So this goes and routes to our reviewers as kind of a review task to kind of look at and see this draft knowledge article and kind of visit meeting the qualifications and criteria of what we expect. Right, so one of the first things that I can do in this task here probably is to take ownership of it and say I'm going to accept this as a reviewer. I'm going to take on this particular task so other people aren't kind of doing or duplicating my activities. Now, I can click on here to open the designer, view it, make edits to it from the designer. I can also add work notes or activities that would be shared back with the author and the collaborator of this knowledge article of things I'm finding that need to be adjusted. But I'm also kind of being kind of pushed into this kind of checklist of things for me to make sure are complete. And what this is this is going down the different qualifications or requirements of these knowledge articles and giving me some instruction as to here's what it should do, and I can look at the value of these and see, you know, is it where it needs to be. I can also, if I want to click in and change any of these, I can click on this. It'll open it up in the designer into that particular section where I can kind of see, make adjustments, or make comments. Now, my actions on any one of these items is I can come in here and say I want to add just a comment to highlight about this particular attribute, what is or isn't right with it. I can mark it complete, or I can reject it. And if I reject it, it's going to ask me for kind of what comments or why am I rejecting the configuration of this particular design attribute. All right, so just to kind of move this along, I'll just mark this as complete. Note there's audit tracking of the actions that are being performed, whether I rejected it, added a comment, right? And let me just scroll down here. I'll just mark them all complete, just to complete this review process. And now my overall review task is complete. And if I go look at my knowledge record, I'll notice it's now in a published state. And this is, in essence, because the way it's kind of set up is that if it goes through this review process and goes through and it checks all those bases, then that in essence constitutes an approval on behalf of this knowledge article. So in essence, by doing this, it goes through and marks it as approved. Now I can obviously go and open this article again in the designer, create a new version, and republish it through that same kind of process. So let me show you now just on the back end of it, or now that we've created a new article kind of from a consumer perspective, right? So if I come back to the portal and I search for something, let's just say something that will likely find a match. So if I search for like phone reset, I would expect this to have a match on our newly authored article. All right, so now I see this, how do I hard reset an iPhone, which is the article we just drafted today. All right, here's my introduction, kind of my instruction information, right, and the user guide that I can download and view as an output of that design, review, quality kind of check kind of process. So that, believe it or not, that covers kind of what I wanted to hit on in terms of both consuming the knowledge content from the portal, but also kind of how you can apply some kind of step-by-step governance kind of process to authoring an article and getting that kind of review and checks and balances kind of activities occurring, so there's some standards being aligned to as part of that process. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I will point out I find these demos really quite amazing when we're looking at something that absolutely integrates process and governance into the flow of the work. And that's always the great challenge you have, is how do you get that enterprise adoption while also giving the freedom to act locally. So thank you. That's very cool. So if you found any of this interesting, here are some possible next steps. Perhaps you're interested in the advanced self-service catalog and portal that we have, which runs on Service Portal. It is available as a fully functioning self-service demo. It's fun. It's easy to use. You can play with it. You can't break it as far as we know. You can get your own login on our website and be using it in 5 minutes, or you can download a demo version from the ServiceNow store if you wanted to. Or perhaps you're interested in our no-cost offer to get the Evergreen Instance Analyzer with the 2 use cases, that is CMS to Service Portal and ServiceNow Best Practices. If you are, we'd love to provide it to you. Last but not least, perhaps you're interested in the deeper discussion and maybe even the demo of our Knowledge Factory approach based on whatever challenge you guys might be facing in knowledge. We would love to have that conversation if it would be of value to you. So there's our email address for any of these. Feel free to reply to that address, and we'll get back to you. And after that, I think we can open it up for questions. Stephanie, if we have any.
We do have some, Don. So, and I'm going to remind everyone, please put them in the Q&A panel so I can scroll through here and find you. We've got a question, I think for Jeff. What is the best way to link contextual-based knowledge directly to the catalog item or the business service?
So I kind of showed in the demo the linkage to the latter, so the linkage to the business service. So through the designer we do that. And so really behind the curtains, kind of where that's being done is on the knowledge article there is a related list called affected products. Basically it is a kind of many-to-many list between knowledge articles and configuration items. So that's where, from a business service perspective, you can say I want to link this knowledge article to this either specific configuration item or in this case a business service configuration item, right? And one of the things that I kind of showed, I didn't talk on too deep, is that the knowledge articles can be broken out into those different kind of types. So you could, in essence, make a determination as to what are the how-to articles related to a business service, what are the frequently asked questions related to business service, or what are the kind of standard policy documents, and use either the categorization or the type or templates to do the differentiation. I guess the former part related to catalog items, there isn't really an out-of-the-box join table between catalog items and knowledge. That I will say, if you look at things like the HR plugin, the way they do a lot of those linkages are kind of through the descriptions themselves. They'll list in the description, here's some, what our HR policy is related to employee onboarding, things like that. They'll put into the descriptions. But certainly the same concept could be done where you create a join table between catalog items and knowledge articles to establish that kind of linkage.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Another one, I think, for you. What format or formats of video are you able to embed in an article?
So there are certainly options there. So ServiceNow has some native support for uploading videos, I'll say that we typically see is that customers tend to use other tools, whether they be YouTube or Vimeo or other video kind of sharing kind of tools, and usually what those tools provide is a kind of an embedded iframe kind of HTML link, and so that becomes just basically part of the HTML of the article, saying here is the actual link to the video, and when you're actually clicking on it, what you're doing is you're launching it from those native tools. But again, so I think the formats that ServiceNow allows are MP4s. I can't remember what the SDF or whatever the other video is, the Microsoft or the Macintosh format, or Apple format, I should say. But so there are some options there to natively, but obviously most people tend to embed from external video sourcing or video tools.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Another one for you. Can you create your own knowledge templates?
So yes. So the knowledge templates, I would liken them to, for those who have worked in ServiceNow and the CMDB, I would liken them to the CMDB classes in that you basically create a template and it defines its own kind of table structure, and you define what the specific fields are that are unique to that template, like I was kind of mentioning in the demo. Like question and answer, for example, would be the specific fields related to like a frequently asked questions template. And then once you define those, what happens is when you go to create a new article within those templates, those particular specific template required fields are expected to be filled in order to present that body content.
Super. Can the knowledge designer be used to revise an existing knowledge article?
Yes. So if we we just published a new article in my demo, right? So if I went to the designer and I selected that existing published article, it would basically give me a prompt to say, do I want to start a new kind of design revision for that article? And then in essence work through the same process, but the output would be, instead of publishing something new, it would be publishing a new version of that knowledge article.
Okay, and I'm looking, last call on questions. I've got another one for you, Jeff. How flexible is the knowledge review workflow?
I would say varies. So, I mean, the way configured in this demo environment that I was showing is that if we go through kind of that design review certification before kind of what happens before we kick off kind of the knowledge-based publishing workflow, then we kind of fill in the blanks and mark it as approved. But certainly there's a workflow that runs, and through the workflow editor of ServiceNow that you could create multiple different review tasks. You could do the design review stuff before an approval happens, or do an approval before the design review step. So I think a lot of the timing and activities could certainly be adjusted to support your desired requirements.
Okay, great, thanks. I've had a couple other questions come in. One quick comment, someone said that they couldn't find this on the ServiceNow store. If you're looking for the Evergreen self-service portal, probably the easiest place to find it is just come to our website, evergreensys.com, and it should be the first banner that you see in the scrolling banners. Going back to the questions, and Don, I think this one's for you. Any best practice on when an article is marked as not helpful?
Yay, I got a question.
we like to pick on Don. He doesn't get many.
Okay, yeah, actually that's actually a good one, because we can't ask too many things from a quality assurance standpoint regarding a knowledge article or anything for that matter, because people then won't provide, right? One option we could use is a 5-star or a happy face scoring capability as well. And then if people score it very highly, we know what that means. If they score it lowly, they tend to feel like they have an obligation to reply or respond with why they scored it poorly. So it might and Jeff, you and I haven't talked about that. That might be a better approach to getting feedback on the quality of knowledge. But when someone checks it as not helpful, it's possible that the article is wrong, or it's incorrect, but it's also possible that their search was for something other than that. And so they're saying it's not helpful because it didn't match the problem they have. So it doesn't mean the article's invalid. So that's the key question you've got to find out there. And the best way to tell that is you look at your knowledge quality, or the percentage of the times it's helpful versus not helpful. And if it's a high ratio, like 80-20 or 90-10, then you probably have a good knowledge article, and you have people that their question just doesn't fit it. If it's lower, then you've got a problem potentially with quality or accuracy, and that's where you could go back and query a number of people who say it wasn't helpful, and individually, and get some feedback on why they said that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don. I think this one's for Jeff. Can we set up an SLA in approval or publishing? Is that a Jeff question?
Yeah, so the short answer would be yes. So I think my assumption here is that in my demo, when I authored a new knowledge article and I submitted it for review, that's when we would start the clock for an SLA. And the answer, if that's the question, if that's the assumption is correct, then that would be yes. We can certainly put an SLA on that, because at that point we've basically kicked off a review task for someone to review the knowledge article and kind of certify it. Review tasks themselves are part of the task table in ServiceNow, which you can attach to SLAs and SLA workflows, so you could put a time to it and also do some other proactive measures, notify people, reassign it if you're not hitting those targets that you're looking to have.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good idea, I think.
Okay, let's see. I think I got everyone's questions. So just a reminder, if you have any questions about anything you heard about today, not sure where to find it, you can email me directly. The easiest email is marketing@evergreensys.com. That's marketing@evergreensys, short for systems.com. And also invite you all to check the resources page on our website. If you go to resources under there, you'll find our webinars, both upcoming ones you can sign up for and recordings of all our past events available for download. So thank you for joining us today, and check that resources page for our upcoming webinar date and topic. Thanks.